everyone, it's Matt, and today I will be doing a Q and A video. A few days ago, I put up a short little video asking you guys to comment with any questions you may have for me. And after a few days, I made the video private, and I put a list of all the questions together, and now I'm going to answer them for you. But not all of them, because there were over 600 questions, and many of them were pretty similar, so I've consolidated the kind of duplicate questions. I've also left out some of the joke questions and the overly personal questions and things like that. But for the most part, I've tried to include most of the different kinds of questions I got. So this will probably take a little while, but I hope you enjoy it anyway. So let's get started. The first question is, have you seen Chef? And judging from the reaction to this comment, I'm guessing it's a meme that I don't know the reference for, but I'm going to answer it seriously. I have not seen Chef, but I do want to see it. It is on my to-watch list on Netflix. So hopefully one day. I've heard it's pretty good. Next question is, do your friends judge you for making ASMR videos? And to answer that one, not too many of my friends know I make them, but the ones I do have been either respectful or appreciative, or at least kind of ignored it at worst, but they've never really judged me or made fun of me to my face for it, which is nice. They all seem to kind of understand it, even if they don't enjoy it themselves. Next is, did or do you experience ASMR addiction? And what do you think could fix it? Personally, I have not experienced ASMR addiction, I would say. I can sleep fairly easily without listening to an ASMR video. Of course, the videos help a lot, but I don't really have a major problem with sleeping without them, so I'm not the best person to answer this question, but I think one thing that could fix it is kind of the same thing that could fix ASMR immunity. Is just kind of taking a break and making your body not so used to it. Just kind of doing it in moderation, really. All things in moderation, they say. But of course, in that first period where you stop using it, it may be a bit difficult, but I mean, there's not much you can do about that when it comes to addiction. But yeah, I'm not too certain what the best advice for that would be, unfortunately. Next is, do you ever get triggered by your own ASMR videos? And in general, I do not. I have been triggered a few times while editing, maybe just for a second or two, but the vast majority of the time when I'm editing, I'm too focused on the editing to really relax and get tingles. Next is, what inspired you to make ASMR, and when did you start making ASMR? So I started in February 2014, and what inspired me was seeing all the cool, I guess, innovations that people were doing around that time in the ASMR community. Particularly Departure 2, I think, is what kind of pushed me over the line from kind of wanting to make ASMR videos to really wanting to make ASMR videos, though it took me some time to get the motivation and courage to start. But I think in 2013 and 2014 there were a lot of, I guess you could say, innovations in the style and quality and effects and variety of ASMR videos. Not to say that that doesn't happen today, but for me, I noticed some innovation around that time that really motivated me. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? There are a lot of places I would like to go. Of course, I want to visit Europe and some of the other more well-known areas. And I really do, or I've always kind of wanted to visit Japan. I've always been fascinated by Japanese culture. And thankfully, I will actually be visiting Japan in August. My friend invited me to go. So that should be pretty good, I hope. As long as I can remember a bit of my Japanese from high school. Next, I've combined a bunch of specific questions about collaborations, such as who I'd be willing to collaborate with, and so on, into something more general. I'll just kind of comment on my thoughts on that, I guess. I've always liked doing collaborations, and in most cases I am open to them, as long as I'm interested in the subject and I think I can pull it off, and as long as I kind of know the person that I'm working with or the people I'm working with. The only reason I say that second part is because, unfortunately, on the internet, not everyone is super nice and respectful. Not to name any names or anything, but there have been times where I've been kind of, I guess, discouraged from working with people based on the way I've seen them conduct themselves. Not to judge anyone's character or anything like that, and again, no names. It's just sometimes you see someone saying things that you don't really like the vibe of, or they're going around being disrespectful. You don't want to work with them, if that makes sense. So next is, what was the first ASMR video you ever watched? Did you find it interesting at first? And I believe the first one I watched was Departure, Episode 1, by ASMR Requests. It was in the article where I learned about ASMR, and I really only watched a few seconds of it, and it was kind of interesting, kind of weird to me, but it didn't click for me at first. I was like, well, I guess this isn't for me. But I later kind of got intrigued, I guess, and did some more exploring until eventually it clicked with me, and the rest is history. What 3 things, items, or people would you want to have with you on a deserted island? And my answers to that are food, water, and a form of transportation off the island. What is your favorite way to relax or unwind at the end of the day that does not include ASMR? It really just depends on my mood. Some days I play video games, some days I read or just watch YouTube videos, really. I don't really have any sort of specific routine to relax. I know a lot of people have more specific things, but for me, I don't go out of my way to relax, aside from watching ASMR videos before bed most nights. What was your favorite movie and show on TV as a child? And my favorite movie was probably one of the Pixar ones, likely Toy Story, the original. Though I'm terrible at picking favorites. And for TV shows, I liked most of the major Nicktoons on Nickelodeon, and I think they were called cartoons on Cartoon Network. I watched all those religiously. Things like Ed, Edd and Eddy, and Dexter's Lab, and Rugrats, Rocko's Modern Life, and so on. Really liked all those. What's the first and most recent CD you've ever bought with your own money? I'm not sure what the first one was, but I think it may have been Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park. And the most recent one would be Renaissance by Polyphia, which is a very good album if you like instrumental metal or progressive metal. What is the one trigger you absolutely hate the most? I wouldn't say I hate any trigger. There are just some that I'm not a huge fan of, so I don't go out of my way to listen to them. And off the top of my head, I would say the one I kind of avoid would be match lighting. Not because it's a bad sound or anything like that, but the suddenness of the noise is kind of startling to me sometimes if I'm not watching the video and don't expect it. So instead of putting me to sleep, it just keeps me awake, I guess. Do you watch anime? And if so, what's your favorite? I used to watch a lot of anime when I was younger, in my teens. But these days I don't watch so much. I think the most recent series I got into was Attack on Titan last year, which was pretty good. I think they're supposed to be coming out with more episodes soon. They might have already, but I'm not sure. But when I was younger, I liked kind of the more popular stuff like Naruto and so on. Nothing surprising, really. What's your favorite TV show and why? My favorite TV show of all time is Breaking Bad, by far. And that's just because I think it does an amazingly good job of telling a story about a few characters without gimmicks. I mean, you could say there are gimmicks in it, but it doesn't rely on gimmicks so much like other shows, and the writing is consistently high quality, in my opinion. As for shows that are currently on, I would have to say Better Call Saul, because much like Breaking Bad, it's consistent and high quality, and doesn't rely on gimmicks, and, I mean, it's a prequel to Breaking Bad, so what can I say? Will you ever do a role play? Well, if you don't count my character impressions and things like that as role plays, which I can understand not counting those, I'm not sure. I might do one eventually, a live action role play. I have some ideas, but I'm not sure if I can pull them off how I want to. And it would take a lot of work. Not that I don't like doing a lot of work, it's just I need to find the motivation, if that makes sense. I generally don't make videos that I'm not motivated to make, because I know they won't turn out as well as they should if I'm not motivated. You mentioned before that you had a passion for amusement parks, roller coasters, and stuff like that. If you had to choose, what would you say is your favorite ride of all time? And my favorite would probably be El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey. It's a ridiculously intense wooden roller coaster. Would you rather have an M&M-sized cat or a cat-sized M&M? I would have to go with a cat-sized M&M because, one, I'm allergic to cats, And 2, I would be terribly worried about accidentally squishing the M&M-sized cat, because it would be so tiny and hard to see.
What is race car backwards?
And the answer to that question is
Race car. What hardships have you endured, and how have you gotten past them? What advice do you have for those who are struggling with inner muck?
And this is a tough one for me because I feel like I've had too good a life. Not to brag or anything, but I feel like I've been lucky enough to not have some incredibly significant hardships like a lot of other people had.
And I'm very thankful for it.
But it means I feel like I can't accurately or adequately answer this question. That said, I have always kind of struggled with social anxiety and awkwardness and things like that in my life. And I haven't really gotten past it, but I have improved over time. And my advice for that, or how I got past it, was to
Purposely go out of my way to focus on being myself.
if that makes sense. Like, going out of my way to do things that I know would make me anxious, just to prove to myself that they're not as bad as my mind makes them out to be.
And that usually works pretty well. As for advice on those struggling with inner muck,
That's kind of a general question, so I'm not sure I can answer it very well, but my advice is
just keep going.
and just keep trying. Don't ever give up, because you will get what you put into life.
If you put effort into it,
You will get much back, and things can always get better.
next is just watching your content. I can definitely tell that you've gotten more sure of yourself over time doing these videos. My question is whether or not you feel like doing these videos has had a noticeable change on your confidence in any real life situations outside of making videos.
And I think it has. I can't be absolutely sure, but I will definitely say my life and my mood in general has improved since starting my channel. Partly because it's nice having a creative outlet to express myself with, and also partly because it's made me many friends that I didn't have before, and I have the encouraging comments of people like you guys,
which I really do appreciate. Do you plan on starting other YouTube accounts, such as gaming or vlogging, etc.?
I don't have any plans at the moment, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. And I do at the moment have a
Twitch account, which you can find in the description.
if you ever want to watch me live stream video games on occasion.
Are you easily scared by creepypasta?
And no, I am not easily scared by creepypasta. I generally find them more interesting than scary.
Who is your favorite ASM artist on YouTube? And who was the first channel that got you interested?
I find it very difficult to pick a favorite. One, because I don't want to leave anyone out, and 2, because honestly, it's always changing for me, depending on my mood. So I'm not going to pick any favorites or name any names when it comes to my favorite specifically. But the first channel that got me into ASMR was Heather Feather. She has a lot of ear-to-ear, soft-speaking and whispering videos, but one of her earlier ones
Was the first ASMR video I saw that
It was the first one where I listened to it and immediately understood the appeal, and I actually listened to it several times to help me sleep for a while. And after that, I was pretty much addicted. Well, not addicted, because I haven't experienced ASMR addiction like I said earlier, but you know what I mean. I got into ASMR after that.
What kinds of obstacles have you had to overcome in making these videos?
And to answer that one, lots of obstacles that you might not expect. Everything from
Background noises like my neighbor's dog and planes flying overhead,
to my own voice not working how I want it to my equipment or computer glitching, to having to be sneaky about it
because I don't want other people knowing all the time,
to having to practice things and try ideas that eventually end up not working. I mean, there's a lot of trial and error when it comes to making videos.
and my videos are all full of edits.
There are tons of things that I cut out in between lines and words and sounds in my videos simply because when you make these videos you end up nitpicking. At least when you're me, you end up nitpicking like crazy. But, of course, it's still worth it, as you can imagine by the fact that I'm still going.
Has there ever been a definitive point in your journey as an ASMR artist that you have admired, such as favorite video or least favorite video you've made?
My favorite videos that I've made are probably my Haunted Mansion and Mad Max Fury Road collaborations, simply because of the amount of work they took and the collaborative aspects of them. Particularly the collaborative aspects of the Haunted Mansion video, because reaching out to the people in that video is what helped me become friends with many of them. So that was a good turning point for me.
What did you think of Batman vs. Superman and or Star Wars Episode 7?
I have not seen Batman vs. Superman. I was going to see it, but the bad reviews kind of turned me away from it. I might watch it one day, though. As for Star Wars Episode 7, I really liked it. I can understand the criticisms that it's too similar to A New Hope, but it doesn't bother me, and I think they did a really good job with it. Definitely better than the prequels.
Which clique were you in during high school? Goths, punks, jocks, burnouts, nerds, etc.
And I wouldn't necessarily say that I was in a clique. I was kind of a loner, really. But if I had to pick one, it would probably be nerds. And I still am into video games and computers and things like that. You know, nerdy stuff. Not super nerdy, but it was probably the closest thing to my clique.
What's your favorite food and drink?
My favorite food is probably pizza, though of course it depends on my mood. And my favorite drink is water. I drink way too much of it. And as a result, I get thirsty way too easily when I don't drink it constantly.
What are your top 3 favorite bands?
That's a really tough one. I have a lot of bands that I've loved. But if I had to pick 3 in no particular order, I would probably say
The Mars Volta, The Dillinger Escape Plan, and Periphery.
Next up is,
Do you like Pokemon? If yes, what is your favorite?
I do like Pokemon. I have haven't played a Pokemon game in many years. I think since the generation of Emerald. But my favorite Pokemon is probably either Pikachu or Squirtle
or Charizard.
I like the original ones.
Do you think you can make a Dark Souls character video?
Maybe one day. I have considered it. I did practice a Solaire voice for a short time, but I never really followed through with it. So maybe one day.
I do want to do something related to Dark Souls at some point. What did you think about Breaking Bad's conclusion?
I really like the conclusion of Breaking Bad. I think some people, without spoiling anything, some people thought it wasn't shocking enough, or there wasn't enough twists and turns and so on.
But I kind of liked that it was simple.
It was kind of just everything the show was leading up to at that point, and it made sense, so I liked it.
Do you make money off YouTube? If so, is it enough to sustain yourself?
I do make a bit of money from YouTube, but it is not enough to sustain myself.
Do you have a job? If so, what?
I do have a job, but I'm not comfortable being specific about it. I will say it is a full-time job. I work 40 hours a week in an office, but that's all I'll really say.
Do you think VR ASMR will ever be a thing?
And the answer is yes. It actually already is a thing, depending on how much you count 2D 360 videos as VR.
I know a bunch of people have made 360 videos recently.
Particularly the people with pixel whipped, such as ASMR Requests, and Gentle Whispering, and Heather Feather, and ASMR Destiny.
And I know some others have done it as well.
I myself have actually kind of been trying to get into VR, but instead of 360 video, I've been looking into doing computer-generated stuff in real time, so you can
get things like 3D and positional tracking with the headset.
But I understand most people don't have access to that at the moment, so I've kind of been procrastinating with it. But one day I do want to get into that.
Do you believe in God?
I'm not gonna start a religious debate or anything like that, but just to keep it simple, I will say that I do believe in God.
Besides making ASMR videos, what are some of the things you're most passionate about in life?
So I feel like I don't commit myself to enough stuff, really. I just kind of do a little of everything, but if I had to pick things out, I would say the fields of music and film, photography, things like that. And I'm also passionate about my friends. I don't have a ton of friends in real life, but with my close friends, I am very passionate about the friendships,
and I really appreciate my friends. Marvel, DC, or both?
I would say both. There are things I like and dislike about both. Marvel, I think, has the consistently better quality with their movies and so on, but I feel like they're more predictable and take less risks. Fewer risks, that is. And so it never really feels like the stakes are high, whereas DC, they're really hit or miss, and they kind of try too hard at times, but they're a little bit less predictable, if that makes sense.
What do your parents think about you making ASMR videos? If so,
audience do not know that I make ASMR videos.
What do you think of Quentin Tarantino movies?
I really like them, and my favorite is probably Pulp Fiction.
How much did all your equipment cost, like your microphone, headset, and recording devices?
The microphone I am using was $500. It is the 3DO FreeSpace Pro, and I have it plugged into a Zoom H1 for my recording device. That was $100. And the headset I use to listen to myself while recording
Was about $120 when I bought it.
It is a pair of Audio-Technica M50s, I believe.
Why have you never done a pure ear-to-ear mouth sounds video?
I have not done a pure mouth sounds video because, personally, I'm not a huge fan of mouth sounds videos. I don't dislike them, but I generally like making videos that I myself would like to listen to. And it's just never really appealed to me too much.
And I know a lot of people are annoyed by them as well.
So I've just never gone out of my way to do it.
Can you make more gaming-related ASMR videos, please?
And the answer to that question is almost definitely yes. At some point, I do want to do more gaming-related videos.
Cucumbers or pickles?
The answer is clearly cucumbers, because pickles are cucumbers soaked in evil.
What interests did you pursue in high school?
I would say not too much, but mostly video games, really. And I was also a huge theme park nerd for a couple of years. I would spend my time on
Theme park and roller coaster websites and forums.
And you would actually be surprised how big a community there is regarding theme parks and roller coasters. It's pretty impressive.
Would you only make ASMR videos if you could support yourself, or is this only a hobby for you?
I think I would if I could, simply because, I enjoy this a lot more than going to work. But I also feel like
Turning this into a job.
would make it less fun. I think for now it's going to stay a hobby. But, of course, I couldn't sustain myself with it if I wanted to.
Omelette de fromage.
And to answer that question, I have to say, omelette de fromage.
What's the fish you fear the most?
That would be the jellyfish. Because while certain fish look pretty scary, like the anglerfish, the jellyfish
Can be almost invisible and can kill you just by touching you. Certain species, that is. What was your favorite voice impersonation ASMR video you have done? Which do you plan on doing in the future?
my favorite have probably been the Joker ones, because I think that's probably one of my best impressions, if you ask me at least. And in the future, I'm not sure. I have some ideas.
I've been particularly interested in doing a Dr. Hill impression.
From Until Dawn, but I need to practice that a lot, so we'll see.
Have you ever done voice acting?
If you don't count this channel as voice acting at all, the answer is no. Though I imagine it would be a lot of fun.
So maybe one day. Are you bald?
I am not bald. do cut my hair very short, and I have a receding hairline, so I can see why you think I'm bald.
What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
That would probably be, depending on my mood, vanilla or chocolate peanut butter.
What are some of your favorite ASMR triggers?
Like many things, this depends on my mood, but I'd have to say soft speaking, scalp massage sounds, and brushing sounds, like ear brushing.
Are there any sports you like to play or watch?
To be honest, I've never really been that much into sports, so not really, unfortunately.
If you won your local jackpot, what would be the first thing you'd buy?
It would most likely be a house for myself, but other than that, I don't know, I'd probably donate at least some of it to charity.
What's your favorite genre of music?
I like a lot of genres, mostly rock and metal type stuff, some electronic, but I also like film soundtracks
And certain other things, but
really a little of everything, to be honest.
potato or PC?
Well, it depends. I mean, a potato could help me not starve to death, but PCs are very useful, so it's a tough one. I'm gonna have to say it's a tie.
Do you have any love for Rush?
I do like Rush. I don't listen to him all the time, but I do enjoy Rush a lot.
Why do you look familiar? Has your handsome face been in a movie or TV show?
First of all, thank you for the compliment. And second of all, I have not been in any movies or TV shows.
Do you get uncomfortable uploading videos with your face in them?
I wouldn't necessarily say uncomfortable, but I am less comfortable uploading videos with my face in them. Because I am
Self-conscious, and like I mentioned, I have a bit of social anxiety.
so having people stare at my face while I talk feels a bit more awkward, I guess. And I'm also somewhat paranoid about being recognized in public, so I feel like the more videos I put up with my face,
The more likely it is someone will recognize me.
but that's kind of silly. Either way, I'm not uncomfortable, I'm just less comfortable.
What is your favorite retro game?
It would probably be Star Fox 64, or maybe Super Mario 64. A lot of the Nintendo 64 games were kind of my first major games.
Where or what do you get your inspiration from for the topics of your videos?
The inspiration, I guess, comes from wherever. Kind of comes from everywhere, to be honest. Sometimes I'll see a movie with a voice I like and try and do that character. Sometimes I'll see an ASMR video I like
And do something inspired by it.
Sometimes I'll hear a story or just something I want to read for you guys. It really just depends. It's a little of everything.
Do you listen to your own ASMR videos or videos you're featured in, or do you avoid them like the plague?
Once I edit and upload my videos, I almost never listen to them again. Because I don't really have a reason to. I'm not going to listen to my own voice to fall asleep. But
My collaborations I do listen to from time to time.
because it's fun to remember how I was working with these people, and I get to hear voices other than my own.
Do you have a favorite creepypasta? How did you find creepypastas in the first place?
I think my favorite creepypasta would probably be Psychosis, and I think that's the first one I read. And I don't remember how I first found out about them, but I think the first I read was Candle Cove. I don't remember where though.
It might have been on some forum. Do you prefer male or female whispers?
Most often I listen to female videos. I just enjoy them more. I'm not uncomfortable with male voices. It's just really a preference.
And I better not be uncomfortable with male voices, because then I'm uncomfortable with myself. Could you make another Hannibal Lecter ASMR?
Maybe one day, but I don't have any plans to at the moment.
What is your accent, or where is your accent from?
I've never really thought of myself as having an accent, though I guess you could say a lot of people think that about themselves. So I don't know. I would just say it's an American accent, to be honest. I don't know anything more specific than that.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
That would be about 11 meters per second.
How did you get the confidence to start making videos, and was it rough at first waiting to see what people thought of your videos?
I got the confidence through a lot of procrastinating and telling myself that I'm eventually going to make a video one day, so I might as well do it. Because I knew I wanted to make videos, and I had ideas, and they were always in my mind, and I knew that they weren't going to leave.
It was just a matter of convincing myself
that someone might want to watch them. And I wouldn't necessarily say it was rough at first, waiting to see what people thought. I just didn't really have any expectations. To be honest, I didn't really expect anyone to watch them, so I kind of thought, well, if people watch it, that's cool. Otherwise, oh well.
Where were you on October 21st, 2015 at 4:29 p.m.?
I was sitting in as an extra for Back to the Future.
How old are you?
I am currently 25 years old.
Favorite video game of all time?
That's a tough one. It really depends on my mood and so on, like so many other things. But some of my favorites have been Half-Life 2, Bioshock Infinite, Bloodborne, many of the classic Mario games, and so on.
But it's hard to pick. Are you Team Cap or Team Iron Man?
I would say Team Cap, probably.
Have you ever been recognized by a fan? What would you do if you got recognized in public?
I have not been recognized by anyone yet, but I'm not sure what I would do if I was recognized. I would probably kind of freak out inside, but try and remain professional on the outside. Maybe shake their hand and say, I appreciate you watching my videos or something like that. But I'm kind of paranoid about being recognized.
I really just make these videos for my channel, and
you could say I want to keep my hobby separate from my real life, if that makes sense. So if I'm being perfectly honest, if anyone ever recognized me, I would prefer that they not approach me. But I wouldn't necessarily be offended if someone approached me, but as for personal preference, I'd kind of rather not know that someone knew it was me. I guess that sounds kind of paranoid, but when you, I guess, spend as much time seeing comments and the internet and how people react to ASM artists online, you kind of start realizing that not everyone is someone that you'd want to meet. Don't get me wrong, I think most people are probably awesome and cool. It's just the paranoid part of your brain worries about the 1% chance that you run into someone who's gonna be not so good.
You have done some Weird Al videos in the past, and I wanted to know when you found out about Weird Al and became a fan.
I'm not totally certain, but I think it was around the time Running with Scissors came out. That's all I really know.
I remember Albuquerque being
a standout at first for me.
What superhero inspires you and why?
I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm inspired by any superhero in particular, but my favorite is probably Batman. Because come on, he's Batman.
Do you believe that personal attention is a crucial ASMR factor? And do you think slower whispering is better in certain situations?
I think it really just comes down to personal preference. Personal attention is nice in ASMR videos, but for me it's not a requirement.
I get tingles with or without it.
And slower whispering, it kind of just depends on my mood and my preference. I think in general it has the potential to be more effective because
it helps to enunciate things with more impact.
When it comes to the sound of words, I guess, but I don't think it's required or always better, really.
If you could be any animal, what would you choose?
Probably some sort of bird, because it would be really cool to be able to fly around everywhere.
Do you have any complaints about the ASMR community?
Not really, to be honest. I think it's a very good community. I mean, as with any community, you're always going to have the bad apples and the negative Nancy's and so on. But I think in general, it's a very good community. There's nothing that stands out as a major problem to me.
What's your favorite part about the ASMR community?
My favorite part is probably how friendly it is and how tight-knit it is to a certain extent. I've made many internet friends through the community, and that's not something I could say for other online communities, because so many of them are much larger or less focused on gentleness and friendliness and so on. I think the ASMR community is kind of conducive to friendliness and closeness, so that's nice.
What future ASMR videos are you planning to make?
I have some ideas. I'm not really going to talk about them here, but like I mentioned, I do plan on doing something in VR or 360 at some point, and maybe a Dr. Hill from Until Dawn impression. On top of that, I've been wanting to do something maybe visual with fire and sounds of fire as well. I have kind of concepts in my brain about things, but nothing particular. It really just depends on what I'm motivated to do. There's also another kind of project I've had in mind, but it's very complicated.
so I don't know if it'll ever turn out, but it involves lucid dreaming, so we'll see. Have you watched the show Lost?
I have not watched the show Lost.
Do you have any plans on starting a Spotify account for your uploads?
I do not currently have any plans, but maybe one day. It could be neat.
How do you get into contact with other ASM artists? How does the creative process work? Are they your scripts, or is there some collaborative brainstorming going on?
I mostly get into contact with other ASM artists via Facebook, because most of them are on there and pretty responsive
To messages.
As far as the creative process, it really depends on the video. Sometimes, at least for my collaborations, I'll write an entire script and then find people to fit the roles.
And other times, I'll get a general idea
And find people who I want to work with, and then we'll kind of work on the script and ideas together.
Do you play a lot of video games? If yes, do you prefer console or PC?
I do play a lot of video games, and I'm not a fanboy for either, but in most cases I do prefer PC.
Because I can get better performance, usually. Have you ever had any real-life paranormal experiences?
I'm not sure if I believe in ghosts or anything like that, but I have had some strange things happen in a few instances. One time, I was in an old building, alone, and there was a gramophone on the table near me. You know, one of those old record players with the horns, kind of the horn-shaped speakers, I guess. And it had not been wound up or anything. I'd actually recently moved it, but I was just working and it started
Spinning on its own, as if it had been wound up.
and actually spun faster than it normally would have, so I'm not too certain what that was about. And there's also been an instance where I was sitting in a car in a parking lot, and I heard what sounded like
Footsteps right next to my car door.
And when I looked to where the footsteps should be, there was no one there, nothing there. And it happened several times, even after I drove around the parking lot. So I don't know what that was. It could have been the car creaking, but
I was unable to find the source of the sound. Is your voice naturally that deep, or did you train yourself to sound like that?
It's naturally this deep when I talk quietly. When I talk louder, it's higher pitched. But I think that could be said of a lot of male voices. So, it's not a crazy,
Fake acting voice I use.
it's just deeper than normal because I'm so quiet when I talk like this.
Does anyone you know personally know or partake in ASMR?
I know a few of my friends know about it because I've told them about my channel, but I think only one or two of them actually watch ASMR videos.
If a flamingo fought an ostrich, who would win?
If you ask me, I think it would clearly be the flamingo, because the flamingo has a fabulous pink color, and the ostrich would not be able to top that.
What are a few of your favorite horror movies?
I would have to say, recently, It Follows was really good. I also like The Shining and the original Insidious, even if the ending is a little cheesy.
And Evil Dead 2.
do know Bloodborne, one of my favorite games, was heavily inspired by his work. So you could say, in a way, that I do like H.P. Lovecraft.
Do you or have you played League of Legends?
I have not played League of Legends, and I'm not too interested in it because I generally am not very good at those kinds of games.
What is your favorite movie of 2016 so far?
I would have to say 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Would you try a binaural Batman?
I may do a Batman video one day, but I can't promise anything. I'm not entirely happy with my Batman voice, even though I used it in the Binaural Joker 2 video, so we'll see.
Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
I feel like 100 duck-sized horses would overwhelm me a little too easily, so I'd have to go with the one horse-sized duck.
How would you rank the Star Wars saga?
My rankings would probably be The Force Awakens, maybe tied with A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back. I'm kind of on the same level for all three, followed by Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, The Phantom Menace, and then
Attack of the Clones.
I know The Phantom Menace gets a lot of hate, but I actually like it more than Episode 2.
What got you to start doing impressions? I love the way you incorporate it into your ASMR videos, but how did you discover you had that talent?
I guess you could say I've kind of always done impressions. Well, maybe not always, but for a long time before I started doing ASMR videos, I would do impressions around my friends, mainly of characters like Borat and the Joker and Bane. I may actually do a Borat video at some point, we'll see. But it's really one of those things I just kind of practiced around friends enough to the point where it became second nature, I guess. So, yep.
In your tapping drum video, it seems you actually know some rhythms and rudiments. Did your brother teach you any?
My brother, who some of you know from my other videos, plays the drums, did not teach me how to play drums. I actually taught myself. I'm kind of sloppy on the actual drums, but I do think I'm somewhat decent, maybe. I have fun at least, and that's what matters. Because I'm not playing professionally or anything like that.
Where are you from?
I will not be specific about this, because I'm not comfortable being specific, but I will say I live in the western side of the United States.
Firstly, do you have a theatrical background? Secondly, who is your favorite on-screen villain?
I do not have a theatrical background, though I was in a minor part in an elementary school play, but that doesn't really count, because we kind of all were, at least in my school, we were kind of forced to do it. And as for my favorite on-screen villain, I'd probably have to say the Joker.
What microphone do you use?
My microphone is the 3DO
FreeSpace Pro.
And they actually, I don't think they sell the FreeSpace Pro anymore. They only sell the FreeSpace. But if I'm not mistaken, the FreeSpace is now just a rebranded version of this microphone since they came out with the FreeSpace Pro 2. So maybe it's the same thing.
Beyonce or Beyonce?
have to go with, and it's a tough one, but
Beyonce. When planning a channel, was it always intended to be ASMR?
I'd always kind of wanted to do a major YouTube channel, but I didn't have any very specific plans. But of course, when I did brainstorm ideas, none of them were ASMR, at least until I discovered ASMR. So, not always.
Will you do any more Facecam videos?
Most likely, at some point, I will put my face on camera again. But I'm not eager to do it. As I explained earlier, I'm not super comfortable with it, and it does take a lot more work to set up the camera and all of that, especially when I'm trying to be sneaky around my family.
What album are you currently listening to?
Lately, I've been listening to an album called Dreamless by Fallujah, and it is I'm not sure of the genre of metal. I think it's just death metal.
Death metal album. It's pretty good if you like that. Are you gay or bi?
I am not gay or bi. I am straight.
What phone are you using?
I'm currently using and reading the questions from an iPhone 6S. To be specific, a gold iPhone 6S with 64 gigs of storage.
On Verizon. Are you right-handed or left-handed?
I am right-handed.
Are you in or have you been to college? If yes, what did or are you studying?
I have been to college, and I studied film in college.
Have you thought of doing another collaborative video game related project such as your Hotline Miami 2 video again?
I have had ideas for more collaborative game related videos. But I'm not too certain what I'll do. I have had ideas for a
Collaborative Bloodborne video.
much like my Mad Max and Haunted Mansion videos. I would think it would be a big collaboration with a lot of people. But we'll have to see. Maybe one day.
What is the silliest reason you've ever had to re-record something?
There are a lot of silly reasons I've had to re-record, but the most common one would probably be
Burping in the middle of lines.
I drink water between lines a lot of times. I edit it out, but I drink water and then I burp a few seconds later, sometimes without expecting it. So it sounds really stupid when I burp and have to redo it. And other than that, there's nothing too silly that I can think of.
Can you do a Negan voice impersonation?
I've kind of practiced it a little, and I may try it at one point, but right now I am a bit too
Unhappy with AMC's handling of his introduction.
to really want to support it with a video dedicated to Negan, but maybe one day.
What's your favorite book or author?
That is a tough one. I don't think I have a favorite book or author, to be honest. I really don't read as much as I should or want to, but I have recently started reading A Game of Thrones, and I'm liking that a lot more than the show, to be honest, which I couldn't really get into. So we'll see how that goes.
How was high school for you? Any tips?
High school was okay for me. I didn't have a ton of friends. Though to be fair, I don't have a ton of friends right now, but I was kind of just a quiet loner for the most part. I mean, I did have a good time overall. I wouldn't say it was bad, but
high school is always a little awkward.
But if you're in high school right now, I'm sure you'll get through it. Just do your best. And as for any tips, I'd say be yourself.
Try not to worry too much about what other people think.
As tempting as it may be at that age. Because what draws people to you is what makes you different.
How do you explain ASMR to your friends and family?
To the few people I've explained ASMR to, I kind of start off by explaining things like the tingly feeling they might get while getting their hair cut, or enjoying the sound of rain. I don't really focus on the role-playing aspect or anything like that because I feel like it's a way to introduce it that people might get weirded out by. So I just kind of introduce it as, hey, have you ever heard sounds that you find really relaxing, or maybe felt a tingly sensation while getting your hair cut? There are apparently sounds on YouTube that help you fall asleep by utilizing that, and so on. But I haven't explained it too much, so I don't really have a routine.
What is your favorite gaming system of all time?
That's another tough one, but I'd probably have to say the GameCube if I had to choose.
Have you played Undertale? If so, please tell me if you enjoyed it.
I have played Undertale, and I enjoyed it very much. There's a small chance I could do a video about it at some point, so we'll see.
Do you experience tingles like most of us, or do you just find ASMR relaxing in general?
I do experience tingles, but I'm not very sensitive at all. It's fairly rare that I experience them. So that's partly why it took me a while to get into ASMR, because
I kept trying to get the sensation,
but had trouble with it. Because I knew what they were talking about when I first read about it, because I've experienced it before I learned about it. It's just I wasn't sensitive enough, so it was kind of elusive at first.
Who are your favorite non-ASMR YouTubers?
I don't really religiously follow any YouTube channels outside of ASMR, but lately I've been enjoying stuff by
Tested, as well as Video Game Donkey. How and when did you discover that you can experience ASMR? Tell us about your first ASMR experience and what was going through your mind at that time.
I think the earliest experience I can remember with ASMR would be getting my hair washed at a barber shop when I was younger. And whenever the barber would wash the back of my head
Near the top of my neck, I would feel it really intensely.
I didn't really think much of it at the time. I just thought, hey, that's a nice feeling. And that was about it. As for how I first discovered the term, there was an article on theverge.com explaining ASMR, and I casually just clicked on it because it seemed like a strange, interesting topic. And that's when I kind of put two and two together and realized, hey, that's kind of the feeling I felt at the barber shop. So there you go.
What is your biggest fear?
That's a tough one, but I feel like I have a fear of letting other people down or unintentionally harming people by my mistakes. And I also have a fear of being completely alone forever. Like, I'm an introverted person, but I also like having the reassurance that there are people close to me, if that makes sense.
Do
was a little too new wave for my tastes, but when sports came out in '83, I think they really came into their own commercially and artistically.
Has there ever been a character or celebrity you've wanted to make an impression of, but couldn't for some reason?
There are many. I've wanted to do a Morgan Freeman video, as many of you have requested, but I don't think I am
Good enough at his voice.
And lots of other characters that are just kind of outside my vocal range. I don't really have any specifics off the top of my head.
Are you a big guy?
For you.
I was wondering if you and other ASMR artists ever hang out together.
Well, we do hang out online. I have some friends that I chat with on Facebook, and sometimes on Skype, as well as in Twitch chats. And I have actually hung out in person with one before.
Springbok ASMR.
But you could say we hang out, even if it's just online. I have a few close friends that I like to chat with a lot. And even if they are just on the internet, they really do feel like
Good friends. And that's because they are. What's your favorite subject in school?
My favorite subject in school was probably mostly science, particularly biology was interesting to me.
Do you or did you have any pets?
I do not have any pets at the moment, but I used to have goldfish when I was little, as well as a pet rat. My most recent pet was a
Chocolate Labrador Retriever dog.
that died in 2007, unfortunately. But these days, I am more allergic to stuff. I'm actually allergic to both cats and dogs. So unfortunately, I can't get either of those, and that makes me sad.
Will you be doing another whispered cover of an album?
Most likely at some point, yes. I have a few albums in mind that I've been wanting to do, but I have to find the motivation to do it.
Maybe one day soon. Was it funny seeing the reactions to your April Fool's video?
Yes, it was. It was very funny.
When you started doing ASMR, did you expect having that many viewers?
Absolutely not. I expected maybe 10, 20, 30 people at most to watch my videos, and then maybe getting 20 subscribers in the long run before quitting. So, needless to say, I am blown away by the support you guys have given me, and I'm very thankful for it.
Do you play or plan on playing Overwatch?
I have been playing the beta the last couple days of Overwatch, but I don't think I'll be buying it.
I do enjoy it, but not enough to buy it at full price.
I'm also pretty bad at it.
If given the choice between the two, would you pick the ability to make yourself infinitely happy or everyone around you infinitely happy? Having one would reverse the other.
I would definitely make everyone around me infinitely happy, because as much as I'd like to be happy,
It's better to have everyone happy.
because that's how you get world peace. When I'm happy and everyone else is still upset, it doesn't matter how happy I am, because everyone else is still upset.
I feel like that was a terrible explanation of it, but
I am very tired, and I will let it slide.
do you think people who can't experience ASMR can develop it?
can to some extent. It's just that not everyone is sensitive enough for it to work via sound. Though I could be wrong. But I do think you can develop sensitivity, because I've certainly gotten a bit more sensitive since I started listening, and the tingles come a bit more easily nowadays.
Who is your celebrity crush?
Now, you guys probably won't believe me, but to be completely honest, I have never had a celebrity crush. I really only have crushes on people I know I could potentially have a chance with. It's like my brain, when they see someone who they know I'd never even meet, it's like they don't even consider it, or my brain doesn't even consider it.
Do you think there are other awesome, underrated communities out there like ASMR?
I'm sure there are. I don't know of any specifics off the top of my head, but with humanity and the internet and all these things, there's always going to be little pocket communities of really cool people.
Have you ever been to Australia?
I do want to go to Australia, but I have never been to Australia.
What do you do during the day? What is your routine?
Well, on weekdays, I go to work. I wake up around 6:30. I take a shower. I eat breakfast. I go to work. I come home. I relax and go to bed. And on the weekends, I just kind of do whatever. That's about it.
Why do you have a relaxing voice?
I don't know. I don't think it's that relaxing. But I guess you guys disagree.
Do you like long drives?
I do very much enjoy long drives. Sometimes I will go on a road trip when I have the option to take a plane, simply because I like going on the drive.
Have you ever thought about doing voice acting or voiceovers, considering your talent for impressions and narration?
I may have answered something similar earlier, but I've considered it. I can kind of see myself doing it for a job at some point, maybe. But
I'm not gonna rely on that idea for now. I'm not dead set on it. Out of all your travels, which place has been your favorite?
probably Yosemite, or maybe Hawaii, but I haven't been that many places yet.
Do you like golf?
I've only played it once or twice, but I did enjoy it. I wasn't super into it, but you could say I liked it.
Do you watch Marvel movies or read comics? If you do, what is your favorite one?
I don't read the comics, but I have seen most of the Marvel movies, and my favorite is Guardians of the Galaxy.
You mentioned that when you bought your binaural mic, that even if you stopped making ASMR videos, you were still planning on using it for other projects. Can you elaborate on what those projects are or were?
To be completely honest, that was mostly a justification to myself for why I bought a $500 mic for a channel that I just started, with no guarantee that it would go anywhere. But I did have some ideas to use them for short films for atmospheric audio. I do occasionally do short films with my friends, and I thought it might be cool to get 3D sound for some of the background noises. So if anyone was watching with headphones, they get kind of a more immersive sense of audio. But that never really panned out. I could still do it though.
If you had one wish
wishes, of course.
If you could have any toppings on a pizza, what would they be and why?
Maybe pepperoni, but I'm a very simple person, and I mostly just enjoy cheese pizza.
Did someone ever walk in on you while doing ASMR? If yes, how did you feel?
I have not been walked in on, but I have been interrupted, where I'll hear someone walking around the house and they'll ask what I'm doing from across the house. And it's a little awkward. I'll just be like, I'm fooling around with my mic because I don't want to explain my channel, and they really don't question it beyond that.
Do you watch Game of Thrones?
I did watch the first season and a bit of the second season, but I couldn't really get into it. So far, I'm enjoying the book a lot more
Because I feel like the show
doesn't do a good enough job of getting you emotionally invested in all the characters with their thoughts and feelings and everything. Whereas the book can kind of explain all these things, and you can see kind of into their minds,
which makes them more relatable. Do you do any mountain biking?
I do not do any mountain biking, but maybe one day.
Do you know any foreign languages, and are there any languages that you would like to learn?
I know a little bit of Spanish and a little bit of Japanese, but beyond that, not really. And I'd ideally like to learn every foreign language, but I know that's not necessarily possible. So to be specific, probably just more Spanish and Japanese for when I go to Japan.
What is your favorite recently released Disney film?
I'd probably have to say Zootopia. It was much better than I was expecting.
How do you like your steak cooked?
Probably medium well. I'm not a huge fan of steak, to be honest, but when I get it, it's usually medium well.
Have you ever been to a Disney park or a Universal park before?
Yes, I have. I've been to the Disney parks in California, Disneyland, and California Adventure. And I've also been to Universal Studios Hollywood.
Ever thought about quitting for some reason?
I haven't seriously considered quitting this channel, but I have thought about the fact that at some point I'm going to have to stop making videos. I don't have any plans to stop making videos anytime soon, though. It's just one of those things where in the back of my mind I acknowledge that it'll come to an end at some point. It'll probably be whenever I stop having motivation to make videos, but I'm still pretty motivated, so don't worry about it.
Why do you think some people become immune to ASMR after a while?
I think it's kind of like anything pleasurable. Your brain just kind of gets used to whatever triggers it, and so you need either something more intense to trigger it, or you stop feeling the same sensations. I guess you could think of it kind of like drugs, where drug users plateau and then have to keep getting higher doses for the same effect. But obviously it's not quite as intense as that. It just kind of operates the same way, I think.
Do you enjoy hunting, fishing, or any sporting activities that are exclusive to the outdoors?
Really, the only one I can think of off the top of my head would be hiking. I don't really do too much else. I don't go outside enough.
So, are you Kylo Ren?
No, I am just a radar technician.
Do you have a different voice in real life? Is this your stage voice?
Well, I definitely don't speak this quietly. most situations in real life. But I wouldn't say this is a stage voice. I'm not really altering my voice when I talk here. It's just how I sound when I talk really quietly.
Will you ever do a video dedicated to anticipatory tingles?
I think I
will one day, maybe sometime soon. What happened to your Art of Bioshock video? That was my favorite ASMR video.
I do apologize for taking it down. I didn't know so many people liked it, but I took it down because I was a bit worried about copyright. Because I feel like reading an entire book like that and showing every page in detail is almost definitely copyright infringement.
I didn't want to risk a copyright strike by leaving it up. If you had a polka-dotted and magical outer space panda, what color would it be, and what would you name it?
It would probably be pink with blue spots, and it would be named something like Sir Charles Worth the 14th.
How important is it for you to seek the meaning of life in your perception? Is there one?
I don't think there's an overall meaning to life necessarily, like an objective one. But to me, I feel like it could be to enjoy life as much as possible without
Deterring others from doing the same. Do you play in a band?
I do not play in a band, but I imagine it would be a lot of fun.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, though I am very, very tired, so forgive me if I'm a bit slow to think right now.
Is there a certain sound that makes you cringe when you hear it, or a sound you just hate?
There aren't many sounds that are like that for me, but I would have to say the cliche nails on a chalkboard is pretty bad.
Do you watch hockey? If you do, what's your favorite team?
I do not watch hockey, unfortunately, but I feel like if I was to try getting into it, it would be one of my more favorite sports, because it does look like fun.
What is the best concert you've been to?
I would have to say 9 Inch Nails. I saw them in 2013, and they had one of the most incredible light shows I've ever seen at a concert, and their performance was really great.
What is your favorite kind of content to make? Also, have you gone on any dates yet?
Well, it kind of depends on my mood. I'd say my favorite kind of content to make is anything where I read, and I particularly enjoy it when I'm reading things I've written myself,
Like Fools or The Jolly Old Pretzel Chef?
even if my writings aren't anything amazing, in my opinion at least. There's a sense of satisfaction you get for reading something that you created yourself. And no, I have not gone on any dates yet.
Will you ever make an Inception ASMR video?
Maybe one day. It does sound like a cool idea. And I think I have considered it before, but it would probably be a fairly complicated process to do it correctly. So we'll have to wait and see.
What is your favorite Rick and Morty character?
It would probably be either Rick, Bird Person, or Mr. Poopy Butthole. And to people who don't watch that show, my answer probably sounded very strange, but that's okay.
How often do you watch other people's ASMR?
I'd say most nights, not every night, but most nights I watch other ASMR videos.
How did you decide to say, "Hey everyone," at the start of every video?
I don't know. I mean, I started with that in my first video, just kind of naturally, and I think it just stuck from there, really. Subconsciously, it may have been kind of a, not a copy, but an inspired by
The way Heather Feather always says, "Hello everyone."
and some other artists also do the same kind of thing. So I guess naturally it came out like that.
What's your favorite part of being an ASM artist?
I think my favorite parts are having a creative outlet where I can really do kind of whatever I want as long as it's quiet and tingly without being judged for being too weird. And connecting with all the nice people, both on YouTube, like in the comments, and on Facebook with other YouTubers and things like that. The friends I've made have been one of the best parts.
Mac or PC?
I currently use a PC, but I do like both for different reasons. I prefer the flexibility of PC, especially if I'm doing stuff like gaming or VR. But Macs are also very convenient for less complicated stuff.
What is your opinion on pets?
I really like pets. I wish I wasn't allergic to cats and dogs, but I particularly like dogs. I think they're great.
Has anyone really been far, even as decided to use, even go want to do, look more like?
Absolutely. Definitely.
Is an ASMR live stream a future possibility?
It is certainly possible. I'm not going to promise anything, but it is something I have considered, and I might try it one day.
If you had to pick a cereal that best describes you, which one would you choose and why?
Probably Captain Crunch, because no other cereal lets me describe myself as a captain.
And I want that hat and that mustache. Will you be doing another Portal ASMR?
Maybe one day. I do want to try maybe something like Wheatley from Portal 2. I actually tried recording a space core video, but quickly realized that was not relaxing at all, no matter how hard I tried to make it relaxing.
Where were you at in life, career-wise, when you first became an ASM artist?
Roughly the same place I'm at right now. Kind of. I was working in a full-time job at the same company, but I've been promoted since then.
How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
Well, according to a Cornell study, about 700 pounds.
How did you meet Springbok?
I became friends with Springbok after messaging her to see if she wanted to be in my Haunted Mansion video. And that's about it. We just kind of started emailing back and forth at that point.
And became friends over time. Vanilla or chocolate?
Depends on my mood, but I would probably say vanilla in most cases.
Do you know of the Gorillas?
I do, and I really like them a lot. They were one of my favorite bands as a teenager, especially the album Demon Days.
Once Suicide Squad comes out in August, do you think you'll be able to make another Joker video based off Jared Leto's portrayal of the character?
Maybe. I think it kind of depends on how much I like his portrayal. I haven't decided what I think about it yet, because you can't really do that from the trailers. But after I see the movie, I might think about it.
Who or what is your truest spirit animal?
Definitely Dwight Schrute.
Do you plan on writing a sequel to The Jolly Old Pretzel Chef, or perhaps another series of nonsensical stories?
I don't think I'll be writing a sequel to that story specifically, but I do want to do more nonsensical stories and silly stuff like that. Speaking of which,
I would keep your eyes peeled for something somewhat soon.
that's all I'll say for now.
What was the last treat you bought yourself?
I'd have to say probably the Oculus Rift. It is very, 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 very cool. And I think VR is definitely
Something that's here to stay and is just getting started.
and it is most definitely a treat, so I am grateful to have it.
What are you looking forward to most over the next 12 months?
Probably my trip to Japan. I can't think of anything else that significant.
Would you rather live in 1920 or 2020?
Definitely 2020, because as neat as it would be to visit the past, I don't think I could live without all the conveniences of
The modern day and the near future. Do you like astronomy?
I don't study it or anything like that. I'm not super into it, but I really do like thinking about space and learning about it. So you could say I am into astronomy. Because when you think about it, the universe is ridiculous. And we are so tiny. And it's just mind-blowing, really.
What is your favorite Nine Inch Nails album?
I would probably have to say either The Fragile or With Teeth.
Because With Teeth is what got me into Nine Inch Nails when I was younger.
And that is it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to answer everything.
There were just too many questions, but I do hope I was able to answer your question if you're listening right now.
And I do hope you enjoyed it. So, thanks for watching. And I will see you next time.